their idea of cybersecurity was Norton antivirus and a firewall. The world is just different. The business is different. And I've seen 100 MSPs post on Reddit. My clients are happy. Everything's good. Everything is never good. ChatGPT still couldn't count the number of R's in strawberry. So let's just think about that when we think about how we're going to hang our hat on.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of MSP Insider, the show where we talk about the things that MSPs need to hear, and ideally where you don't really hear anywhere else. Sometimes it's a little tough love. Sometimes it's just a unique perspective from the background of the folks that we bring on. For this episode, I am blessed to have Alex Farling, co-founder of Empath, join me, who has an extensive background in the space. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive off into the deep end of the things that people need to hear, why don't you just give the quick version of who you are, why you're here, and why the hell we should listen.
Yeah. Boy, I don't know why anybody should listen, but, I'm just a guy who's been in this space for a little over 20 years now. I had an MSP for 16 and a half of those, sold that in 2020. I like to tell everybody I've been in the same trenches that they're in. I've kind of spent my life trying to solve the same problems that they're trying to solve. But as a non-technical owner, I kind of took a different path and a different track than a lot of folks, right? I was a sales guy that owned an MSP. I identified and found some problems we had around account management and delivering consistent client experience and really just redefining what client success looked like. So we spun off and built a company called Lifecycle Insights that helped MSPs go create some of these reports and make life easier when going to sit in front of a customer to have the best way I ever heard it put was to go have the boardroom conversations instead of the server room conversations, Was lucky enough to exit that company in 2023 to ScalePad. And then as I'm sitting on my duff trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, this guy named Wes Spencer comes and taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Hey man, I'm doing a cool thing. You should kind of come along." And, Wes and Kyle and I got together and we've been building Empath for about the last 18 months. We launched the product 9 months ago at Right a Boom, and it's been quite a journey. So now we spend our day trying to help MSPs with education and upskilling and just really trying to solve that. How do I turn the Starbucks kid into a functional engineer? And how do I turn my stranded tier 1.5 engineer into a VCIO or a tier 3 escalations guy or whoever they need to be in their career? But we're really trying to tackle career planning and career road mapping for MSPs.
Yeah, which is such a critical thing, right? My experience and how I met Alex personally as well was actually through his journey with LCI. He was one of the vendors at that time, and even still to this day, who I tell him this, who was most gracious with his time, because I needed a lot of help to build out our account management VCIO function, like the true deliverable, the way that I had the vision for, but I didn't know how to get from A to Z. And so really leaning into him, not only through the product and the platform, but also his guidance and experience. I think there was an interesting note that he mentioned, and I don't want to gloss over it, was that he had said, you said that you were a sales guy that sort of happened to find yourself owning an MSP. That's pretty unique too, because most of us get in it the other way, where we're tech guys that know how to talk to people, and we do a good enough job at talking to people that we end up with some employees and a lot of clients, and then we're kind of stuck not knowing how to get to that next level.
Yeah. And I think all of us, doesn't matter what angle you come at it from, you're also an individual contributor who now has to manage people, right? Somebody who was really good at your craft, whichever craft it was. And now you have to figure out how to manage people. And so there's always a lot of growth that comes with it. But I tell everybody, like even my story, I understood sales and what good client success looked like. I still became infinitely better at client success and understanding what MSP customers wanted by working with 1,100 MSPs to onboard Lifecycle Insights and build out that product and figure out what it needed to be. We built everything I had in mind and had drawn on the back of a bar napkin and handed to a couple engineers. We built all that in the first year and a half. We spent the next 3 or 2 years building stuff that MSPs came to us and said, "Hey, what if this thing did one more thing?" And that kind of, I think, leads into part of what we're going to talk about today is that, the zeitgeist in this industry stands around and tries to convince you that they ran this amazing MSP and they had it all figured out and everything was good. And the reality is none of us 5 years ago ran the MSP that we talk to you about today. And that's even more true for the guys who haven't run an MSP for a decade. Like their idea of cybersecurity was Norton antivirus and a firewall. The world is just different. The business is different. And yes, you still want to be profitable, but, thought leadership in this space is broken. And it's something we're trying to solve here at Empath, because all of us, every single day, we learn something new. Our journey improves. And the more we can admit that, hey, man, I was in the same boat as you. I had this client success deliverable. I couldn't figure out what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to go to my customer with a budget and talk to them from the finance aspect and not from the, red, yellow, green computers report aspect. And I couldn't do it. And I'm staring at a sign on my wall that says, if you have to do it twice, automate it, that we hung on the wall when we bought LabTech in 2008. And I'm thinking, why is client success the one part of my business that I don't automate?
Yeah.
All the data exists. This should be click button, get banana, go visit my customer and solve the problem. And it just wasn't. So that's kind of how we approached that. But that thought process is carried over with me as I continue my journey. Just that, the knuckleheaded kid that ran a mediocre MSP in Delaware didn't feel like he had a place as somebody who people looked up to and came to and said, hey, help me solve my problem. And at first I just started going, we got a product and we can automate a couple of the reports and then you can go have whatever conversation you want. And what I learned was MSPs didn't know what that conversation was, didn't know how to have that conversation. So through talking to hundreds or thousands of them, we got better at that conversation. We learned what conversations were coming home with a win. And, just being open and available and giving people that time was the tool that led us to get better at it. Mm-hmm. If we had sat in an ivory tower and not been willing to talk to Jeff Newton when he came rolling around, I wouldn't have learned anything.
Right.
So and I think that thought leadership journey is the thing that you only get there by being in and around all the people who are there. And I struggle with it. Like somebody had to beat it into me. They go, you own this topic. You are one of the smartest people in our industry on this topic because you've spent 15,000 hours at it. And I went, holy shit, I really have. He goes, how many MSPs do you think have spent 15,000 hours at it? I went, maybe none. He goes, yeah, dude, you really are the expert at this. And I went, really, me? And so it's this thing where, and you and I talked about this in the green room, like thought leadership is broken in our channel because all you have to do is go to Reddit or, LinkedIn and put, I'm a thought leader in your title. And now MSPs come flocking to you to pay money to you to get you to consult with them. Not necessarily earned all the time.
Right. What was that moment that made you say, okay, this is getting ridiculous as it relates to thought leadership and guru and visionary and, like, to your point, the endless titles people stack behind their name?
The thing that really burned me up on that was going out to LinkedIn and having been to 250 trade shows in the last 4 years, going out to LinkedIn and seeing people who are visionary thought leaders in their LinkedIn title, who I don't even know their name. I've never heard of them. I've been to 250 trade shows. I've been everywhere that MSPs go. I'm in all the communities that they're in. If you're a visionary thought leader, we'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. Right? There are a few really visionary thought leaders in this industry. Brian Blakely is amazing, right? He teaches people how to have conversations around cybersecurity that you'd never think to approach it from that perspective. He's fantastic. I'll go stick that title on his LinkedIn. If you had to put it there, it's probably a little suspect. And I think that there's just something to be said for, like, if you go to Matt Lee's LinkedIn, you'll see all the alphabet soup. That's all the certifications he's collected. You won't see him out there calling himself a visionary or a thought leader. And I think there is some narcissism that comes with putting those titles out there for yourself. I don't want a narcissist to teach me. I want the guy to teach me who sits down and says, I'm not really sure why you're listening to me. I learn something new from somebody else every single day. But I'll tell you how much I know. And those are the guys who really are developing over time and continuing to incrementally improve and getting a little better every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you answered my follow-up question, honestly, which was, what should MSPs do to really lean in and learn from those people? But you already defined it. It's find the ones that are willing to pull that chair up next to you and say, look, this isn't the only way to do it, but this is the best way I found out by doing 1,000 ways that it failed miserably. And there's still probably a way you can take this and improve it for yourself.
Man, you just touched on something that just burns me up. And we didn't even talk about this one, but MSPs come to me all the time and go, I don't want to create my own way to do it. I just want you to tell me how. And it is a broken mentality that we have in this industry of there's a way that somebody can just teach me. They can give me the best practice. I'm going to put air quotes around best practice, and I can just go do it. I walk into a sales call and I'm going to say shit that nobody else should say. I sent an account manager out to watch Alex Rogers speak in, I don't know, this was probably 2015 or 2013 when, Chartex, the pinnacle of MSP education. And if you've ever seen Alex Rogers speak, the guy slides in the door like Cosmo Kramer. He's got more energy than anybody in the room. He's flailing around. He's this big, tall, huge personality. He could sell ice to Eskimos. And the guy that I sent was much more reserved. He's much more dialed down. And he came back and flopped in the chair in my office and said, man, that was great. I appreciate you sending me out there to have that learning experience. But if you want me to do that, I should probably just quit. And that was kind of an epiphany for me. I went, holy shit, I can't send him out there to be somebody he's not. What I needed to do was set the expectation when he went out there to say, Alex is going to say some weird shit you can't get away with. Right?
Yeah.
I don't need you to say what he said and get the result that he got. I need you to say what's authentic to you that still gets the result that he got. And I talk to people about this, like budget forecasting all the time. Talk about this all the time. I'm going to say, when I sit down in front of a prospect to budget forecast with them, I'm going to go, look, Mr. Prospect, I've worked with a lot of people who have the same kind of problems that you do.
Yeah.
In my experience, somebody with the kind of problems that you have probably needs to spend $3 or $4 grand a month on IT solutions. And you're probably not spending that. If I come back to you with a number in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, can we still be friends, or are you going to throw me out on my ass? And I have that conversation with them in the first conversation we have where they express interest. I put budget out on the table and I go, this is what it costs to do it right. Can you pay to play, or are you wasting my time and am I wasting yours? Yeah. I can land the line, are you going to throw me out on my ass? I know some people who are really reserved, great human beings that just couldn't see those words coming out of their mouth. They would choke on those words when they came out of their mouth. So what I tell them is, I don't need you to say that. I need you to get to that result.
Right.
And that's the thing. If you go sit down with one of these gurus who goes, my way is the only way, they're going to have Mother Teresa going, are you going to throw me out of my ass? And that just can't happen. So I think my advice to folks who are trying to learn is go work with somebody who helps you understand like where you're going and maybe can show you their way to get there, but also is flexible enough to help you figure out your way to get there, because we will not all have the same journey.
Yeah, it's such a powerful thing you just said, because I witnessed and experienced this in my own evolution as well. But we specifically, as how can I help people and tacticians or technicians, we're the type of people that never once used the owner's manual to put anything together. And yet at the same time, when it comes to learning something new like that, it's also well, Alex told me to go out there and say, you're going to put me on my ass. And I said it and I got thrown out on my ass. Alex doesn't work. His opinion doesn't work. And then we're so closed-minded, just like that. Or maybe closed-minded is not right. We're fixed mindset rather than growth mindset of okay, it didn't work. That doesn't work.
Right.
And I'm never going to try it again, because it was like binary, a one-time only thing. And now we take that same approach to I've done outbound email before. Cold email doesn't work. I've done marketing agencies before. Marketing doesn't work. I've done a sales guy before. Selling to MSP doesn't work. And, what do you tell to that, 13, the owner of a 13 employee MSP in Flyoverville, right where I'm at. So I'm not talking down to anybody about, how do you really unlock that moment that you were just talking about?
Well, my MSP was in Dover, Delaware, a town of 40,000 people where 10,000 of them are attached to Dover Air Force Base. And if the Air Force Base goes away, the town now becomes 30,000 people. So I understand Flyoverville. But I think the point is pretty simple. If I handed you a brand new computer and a thumb drive and said, go image this with Windows 11, and the first time you did it, you got a blue screen, would you come back to me and say imaging doesn't work? Or would you iterate and fix the process? And we spend so much time as techs, and I love the analogy of installing Windows, because at my MSP, we ran Microsoft Deployment Toolkit way back in the day. We were imaging Windows XP machines, so you didn't have to sit there and go next, and wait for a CD to move things along. And the first time we got a fully deployed Windows instance, it was a win. We celebrated it. But then we went back and said, now when I deploy this, can I get the LabTech agent pre-installed? Can I pre-install Microsoft Office? Can I pre-install Microsoft Office and activate it with the CD key for the customer? And can I build that into the UI when I'm walking through MDT? And can I click on the right box to make this thing happen? And as techs, we nerd out on that and we get excited about it. And then we go, but I ran the sales playbook exactly like it's in the instruction manual and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Sales is no different. If I go into a sale and I fuck it up, that's a blue screen. Back up, figure out what you said that fucked it up, and stop doing that. And
Yeah.
so, my advice to everybody who's struggling with sales, account management, any of these softer skills type things is figure out how to give yourself the opportunity to research the blue screen.
Mm,
If I go into a sale and I bomb it, from the
yeah.
parking lot before I ever leave, I should pick up the phone and call somebody in my organization, call a coach, call another MSP that's in a peer group, or somebody who will just let you vent to them. If you don't have anybody else to call your own voicemail and just
Mm,
unpack your sales call. It's fresh in my mind. I know exactly where it hurt. I know what went well. And do this with your wins too.
yeah.
Hey man, hey Jeff, I just left a sales call. Everything went really good, and I think I'm going to land it. But there was one spot where I slipped up. I said this, and then they kind of leaned back and
Yeah.
disengaged with me a little bit, and I had to reel them back in. I need to explore
Mhm.
that and figure out how I can do better with that next time.
Yeah.
Give yourself give yourself permission to screw it up. Know that you tried something and it didn't work. I'll give you another story. That same account manager that I sent out that struggled with Alex Rogers, I took him with me on a sale. It was a work deal he was working. It was a referral he got from one of his account management customers. So I took him in. We're talking to a school. It's a Catholic school in the Diocese of Wilmington. 7 people around the table. We've done the whole sales process. We're in the presentation meeting. 7 people have to agree on this. So it's me, Ross, and 7 of the people from the school at the table. We do the whole presentation. We do sounds like we've solved for all the pain points that you had. Good news is we're doing it within the budget that we talked about. This really seems like the solution that checks all the boxes for you. Does it make sense for you guys to sign the contract now, or should I stand in the hallway while you wait and talk about it? And I stopped. And I watched the principal lean forward and look up and down the table, and a bunch of people kind of give him a head nod. And he goes, "I think we're good." And he reaches over and he grabbed the contract and he signed it. And walking to the car, Ross goes, "That was some wicked Jedi mind bullshit you pulled on them in there." And I went, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I never would have been able to say that, but how did you know that they were going to sign?" I
Yeah.
said, "I didn't.
Right.
What I knew was the worst thing they could tell me was go stand in the hallway, or we're not ready to make that decision today." And I was prepared for we're not ready to make a decision today. So the question wasn't scary.
Right.
He's like, "Really? I would have been scared." He's like, "I was scared for you. I don't think I breathed until they signed the paperwork." It's like, if they had told me I can't make that decision today, what should I have said to them? He's like, "I'm not really sure." I'm like, "Then you haven't practiced that one enough." Because my answer would have
Mhm.
been simple. "Look, Mr. Principal, you're not going to enjoy it if I call you 47 times to follow up. And guess what? I'm not going to enjoy that either. So let's just agree we're not going to make each other hate each other. If you can't make the decision today, let's get some time on the calendar next week where I can follow up with you. We'll have a nice, clean, either agree to do business or agree to whatever next steps look like from there. That way we can be
Yeah.
friends when we walk away from this."
Yeah.
He's like,
So
"Huh, yeah, that does make the question less scary." And the
right.
point is, I practiced. The point is, I knew if I clicked this button in the MDT deployment toolkit, that I knew what the result I was going to get, or at least I knew a couple of results that I was going to get, and I could manage them all.
Yeah.
The average MSP gets 6 to 8 sales appointments a year. They're not practiced. They're not good at it. So
Mhm.
what I would tell the MSP is you have to practice. You have to get good at it. The only way you practice is by running through it. And the only way you get good at it is by taking notes and stepping back from it and saying, "Here's what worked. I need to do that again. Here's what failed. I need to stop doing that."
Yeah.
Instead of treating sales like black magic that's either going to work or not work. And it must just be because Jeff carries a magic wand in his pocket so he can close a
Right.
deal.
Yeah. There's so much packed inside those couple of stories. The very first thing I heard you say through all of that is that continuous iterative improvement
Yeah.
is the baseline,
I didn't get
right?
good at
And
sales on day one. I mean, I remember sitting in a Verizon Wireless. It wasn't even Verizon Wireless at the time. It was Bell Atlantic Mobile. I remember sitting in a Bell Atlantic Mobile store talking to a sales coach about how to sell the StarTAC. Like, that's how old I am,
yeah,
right? The flip phone,
yeah,
two line display. Like, it was $1,500. It was $25 for
yeah,
25 minutes, and they made us role play. We had to work with somebody else to do some role play, and nobody does that at an MSP. That's why I'm such a
right.
huge fanboy for Robert Gillette and what he's doing over at MSP Dojo, because he's the only guy in the industry who's letting folks
Mhm.
role play. And role play
Right.
sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's not fun. I remember being uncomfortable with it when I was 18 years old and thought I was,
Yeah.
18 years old and thought I knew everything and was bulletproof, and it was still uncomfortable. Um,
Yep.
so, role play isn't fun. Practice isn't fun. But Michael Jordan didn't get good at basketball practicing 8 times a year.
Yeah.
You're not going to get good at sales practicing 8 times a year on live fire deals. What we call that
Mhm.
In the car industry, when I sold cars back in the day, because I'm that old too, we call that burning a good deal.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Taking yourself out of the opportunity to earn the sale. Right.
Yeah.
And the inverse of that is never selling past sold. Right.
Know when to shut up
Because
and take your gas. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so awesome. So let's transition really to where that evolves, right? So now people have realized that they need to learn selling, they need to practice selling. They're getting good at that. For those current folks that maybe want a training ground to do that, right? The play field that they can do that work on.
Yeah.
For me, my natural progression was actually I came up on technical, then I landed in this thing called account management, which was really like a bastardization of what became VCIO,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is why it's a topic I
God,
wanted to
man,
delve
you're going to set me off with that.
yeah, I am exactly because it's my evolution. And as we sit to talk about the VCIO situation, you said, and I quote, "You're all doing it wrong, and I can prove it." And that's a bold statement,
Yeah.
and probably has some folks choking on their coffee right now. But I really want you to break that down
Yeah.
for
No,
us.
I think VCIO is a garbage term and we should throw it away. Sorry for those of you who that's your title. You're a very valuable human in the organization. Your organization did you a disservice by giving you that title. It's a stupid title. You are not virtual. You actually exist. You're actually fractional. If we were in the finance space, we would call this a fractional CFO. But you're also probably not even behaving like a CIO. Chief Information Officer really doesn't tackle a lot of security. That's what a CISO is for. And what's the first thing we give a VCIO? Compliance, security,
Mm-hmm.
right? We created this stupid term because some vendor told us that they could sell more of our product if we had a VCIO product. We used to joke at Lifecycle Insights like, we'll stop calling it VCIO when you stop Googling for it. We'll stop calling it QBR when you stop Googling for it. Part of this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? We're Googling for VCIO tools, so the vendor has to label themselves as a VCIO tool. But in reality, what we are, and let's step back a minute. MSPs scale, they don't scale linearly. We can't go in and say, congratulations, you're an MSP today. Now you need an account manager, a client success manager, a salesperson, and a VCIO, and a CISO, right? You don't get to fill those 5 seats because you bought a RMM tool and a PSA and became an MSP yesterday. You have $10,000 in revenue. You can't afford to pay all those people. So on day one, one person wears all those hats. I mean, slowly but surely, we peel those hats off and give them away to people. The first one we should give away, in my opinion, is account management, not VCIO, not high level strategy. This is internal sales. How do I replace the computers when they're old? How do I make sure all my clients are going to renew when their time is up? How do I process quotes and orders and things like that? Oh, and by the way, go touch your clients on a regular basis and make sure that they still love us and want to do business with us. Later, we'll peel that account management role in half and make it client success. But we're going to do that when we hit $10 million. Like, let's not worry about that today. If you're a small MSP, chill. Client success nobody needs to wear that hat all by itself. It's a function of account management. We have to be careful with that because account management is still internal sales. So they need to have some touch points that are not a selling touch point where they just go out and talk to the customer and go, hey, here was some donuts. How's life? Is everything okay? Hey, I was going to eat lunch anyway today. Would you come with me? Right. Yeah. Then we have VCIO and CISO, right? These are the top tier strategic conversations that we have. One is around just how do we manage technology and information technology as a whole. And one is how do we secure that technology? You're not going to have a VCISO till you're a $50 million shop, right? So chill out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
VCIO, the owner's going to do it well upwards of $2 million. Stop trying to convince yourself that your account manager can do this. He can't. And I'm going to give you my favorite analogy to this. And everybody says, I've got a VCIO. They have to prove to me that they're making the company money or I can't afford to have them. You're not wrong, but your answer was wrong. You went out and said, in order to have this guy, I've got to slap a quota on him. Nope, that's what your account manager does. Stop. This is not a VCIO if they have a quota. And I'm going to tell you why. Imagine the CIO for General Motors rolls into the General Motors executive leadership team meeting and says, I have a new project that we have to undertake. We have to leave our current accounting financial system that we built in-house. We have to move to Oracle. The leadership team says, great, what's that going to cost? $40 million. Oof, even for GM, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Is there enough money in your budget to cover that? Nope, I need extra money. Okay. We talk back and forth. We get board approval. We do all the stuff. Finally, the CIO talks us into it, and we now roll out this big Oracle project. Imagine the day where the CIO walks out of the boardroom with the approval, calls his Oracle rep and goes, "We're good to go. Send me my commission check." What happens to that CIO? He goes to jail.
Right.
In a publicly traded company, he goes to jail. But that is the disservice we do to ourselves when we ask a CIO, someone who's supposed to be running strategy, to carry a commission. His strategy is going to include sell the shit that pays me the highest commission. And I can prove this by looking at our distributors. If you go look at Pax8, SureWeb, Ingram Micro, D&H, any of those, what products do they push the most? If you go look at their top 10 billing products, it's the products that pay the sales guy the biggest commission. If you work with any of the telco companies, if you work with Telarus or Intelisys or any of them, why do they pay spiffs? Because they know you'll sell the shit that has a spiff on it because you're money motivated. A salesman is cash operated. They're coin operated. Cha-ching, move on to the next. Cha-ching, move on to the next. A CIO should not be coin operated. They need to be strategic. They need to sit down with the customer and say, you have 3 risks. This one over here has to do with my company selling you something and we make a bunch of money, but it's actually not the one that's going to put you out of business. Let's go focus on these other 2 and put this in priority order. Someone in your organization has to be able to take off the salesman hat and go have that conversation. And I would argue to millions and millions in revenue, that is still the owner.
Yeah, the most equipped to have that conversation at that level.
Because we have to go sit in the boardroom and have a conversation with a board of directors. The kid you hired from Starbucks last week or the kid you hired out of college with a degree in IT is going to walk into a boardroom and get laughed out the door because he doesn't know how money moves through the organization. He doesn't understand how the monetary swings or even the regulation that's required for this organization, right? This needs to be a highly educated person who understands how to talk to leadership teams, how to lead leadership teams, right? This is a C-level executive at your client's organization. And I'm going to say something even more controversial. If you're a small MSP and you don't have this person, that's okay too.
Yeah.
You can build a really good business without a VCIO. And you'll be all right. Go do some technical account management is what we used to call it back in the day. Yeah. Right. So sorry for the soapbox diatribe there, but there is a short attention span in this industry where we jump from one thing to the next. And right now it's VCIO and everybody thinks that they have to have one. And I would argue that what we need to have is a client success program where we understand which clients are at risk and which ones aren't, and that we're meeting the needs of each client individually, instead of meeting the needs of the MSP to sell a full list of products across all of our customers.
Right. So what would you say to that, whether it's the same MSP or not? I think using that analogy of 15 employee, still sub 3 million, like scoped MSP is a good one to talk about because it's where most of them are.
Yeah.
What do you say to that MSP owner who has not yet sliced off those hats into dedicated roles to go do the functions needed well and intentionally so that they can be freed up to be the one to leave the building, right? And actually go sit in the boardroom, conference room, warehouse of their actual clients that they've had since when they were mowing lawns for $75 an hour.
First, I ask, what are your goals? Right? Because I can give you generic advice all day long. If he says my goal is to go from 3 million to 12 million, I go, okay, spin off an account manager, let him handle the $3 million in accounts you have and focus on building a sales engine. If he says, hey, I'm happy with my lifestyle business. If we grew 15% a year for the next couple of years, I'd be happy. Life is good. I'd say focus on building client success and account management, and the rest of it will come because a good account management program builds referrals. Referrals turn into real business. Anybody who tells you can't build a business on referrals, number one, doesn't know how to ask, and number two, probably is trying to sell you marketing. I think, and when you're a $30 million company, you need more than referrals. But when you're a $3 million company, you can grow 15 to 20% a year on referrals. You just have to be smart enough to know how to ask for them. It's a whole other soapbox diatribe. But I think it is build for the thing that is most important to you next. If it's just reasonable, steady, sustainable growth, then build account management, because the hardest thing to do is outsell churn if you're not delivering a great product or service. And the hardest thing to do is to grow if you can't go sit down with your existing customer and say, hey, Jeff, why is it you picked to do business with us anyway? What is it you love about us? Hey, did that quarterly business review really deliver the kind of value that you need? And if it did, Hey, I know there's 3 people on your LinkedIn that I notice you're connected to that we really would like to get an introduction to. They're the kind of people we'd like to do business with. Since you just told me that my QBR knocked it out of the park and this was exactly what you needed to see, would you mind making an introduction to a couple of those people? They might see some value in the same kind of thing we just delivered for you, right? Understanding and having a real client success opportunity, a real client success operation opens so many doors that most MSPs just miss. I will argue till I'm blue in the face that $1 million a year company can afford a standalone account manager, and they will pay for themselves if they're properly managed, properly motivated, and properly deployed. This frees up my owner to go out and do sales and VCIO. I'm no longer fighting fires. I'm no longer wearing a bunch of extra hats. Now my CEO can go do those other 2 things. And I'll just say this: the most clearly I ever heard this said was somebody who said, and I wish I could give them credit. I can't remember who said it. A small business owner has 2 jobs: sales and training somebody to do everything else. Yeah, if you think you can abdicate sales, if I think I can hire a Jeff Newton and sales will just take care of itself, I haven't delegated it. I've abdicated it. I'll spend a bunch of money on a Jeff Newton. He'll let me down because we don't have aligned expectations. I don't have a marketing department built up to feed him referrals and leads. We don't have a way to keep him fed. So now he's actually doing marketing and not doing sales. He's not producing at the rate that I expected him to. And I'm going to be pissed off and be on Reddit complaining that I wasted $100,000 and had to fire the guy.
Yeah.
Right. And in reality, I'm just the asshole who set him up to fail.
Right. And I want to pull into that and tie together a couple of things you said, because I truly believe this is where the majority of MSPs in our space are, having worked for some and outgrown some others. But there's this big disconnect of reality between an MSP who wants to grow. They are committed to investing in the growth. Yeah. They can only sort of look to the outside world to know what the recipe for growth is or should be, which, to your point, in some of the soapboxes is you need to hire a marketing agency because you need more leads. You need to get an account manager because you got to have somebody actually farming your business, right? There's a handful of things. So to pull this down into something that's a more specific and concise question is like, what do you say to that MSP owner who's prepared and committed to invest the dollars into growth? They're currently still owner-led sales, and that's okay. They don't have a dedicated account manager currently functioning in that role. Like, what are the first 3 steps to properly, this is something else that you said, enabling and empowering and supporting that person to be successful in that role?
Yeah.
So that they can deliver the revenue to support the other efforts.
First, I have to do the thing that MSPs are actually pretty good at where technology is concerned, but not good at where people are concerned. And I have to build the process, right? Go build the IT glue documentation that you would have for MDT deployment of a workstation around account management. What does good look like? What does a win look like? Define that. Make sure that you define what a win looks like, not just for your MSP, but for your customer, because every customer is going to have a different idea of what a win looks like. Yeah. But my account management team should be able to, at the drop of a hat on a Friday afternoon, say, hey, Jeff, of my 20 accounts, these are the ones that are green, super happy, no risk. These are the ones that we had a misstep with, and these are the ones that are actually at risk of churn and that we're performing CPR on today. And we have an established CPR plan. We know what it looks like to go coddle a customer who is upset with us and who's having a problem. And then we just have to accept the fact that, we can't fire every customer. If we have bad customers, it's probably our fault, and we need to go figure out what we did wrong to screw up that customer relationship and fix it. And that is that guy's responsibility. We have to hire somebody who's qualified to do that. It can't be an introverted nerd who wasn't quite cutting it as a tier 1 engineer, and we decided to slide him sideways into account management. It has to be somebody who is functional to have that conversation. Hiring that is hard if you're not good at hiring, and a lot of technical people are not good at hiring, right? We're very by the book type people, and sometimes struggle with enough EQ to pick up in an interview whether the salesman, the only thing he can sell is himself to me. And this is an issue that we have. Go engage somebody to help you hire. That's something I wish I had done. I am not good at hiring. Fully admit it. I'm terrible at hiring. I'm too optimistic. I want to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I will hire the wrong person because the best thing they're capable of selling is themselves. Terrible way to do it. And I wish I had hired a good agency to come in and help me hire some people early on in my career. I would have been in a much better place and would have struggled a whole lot less. But process first, people second, and then oversight and management of the process third. I can't just turn somebody loose and pretend like I gave them the instruction book. They should be okay. I have to have regular check-ins. If I have a brand new account manager, I probably need to give them 15 minutes a day every day for their first 3 months, and then scale that back to a point where I can get to 15 minutes once a week of just a check-in, man. How you doing with all your accounts? How's life going? This can be your drive home from work. If you're going in and out of the office at an odd hour, this can be their drive to and from work or whatever. This doesn't have to be a hard and fast scheduled meeting, but what I need is a check-in to say, here's my list of accounts. Here's the ones that are wonderful. Here's the couple that I'm worried about. Because what leadership needs to know, what revenue is at risk? Do I have a client who spends $400 a month that's at risk of leaving, or is my biggest client who's 18% of my margin and 40% of my revenue, is that client at risk?
Yeah.
Those are two different real world scenarios. One my account manager can handle. The other one, he better be ringing alarm bells and getting me to go take the owner to lunch and figure out what the hell's wrong. So I think it goes back to process. It goes back to being deliberate and not abdicating, thinking that we're delegating. We are terrible about that in our industry.
Are there any, going back to what you said earlier, you spent 15,000 or more hours, right, really leaning into account management and client success done well. So you've seen a lot of what done well doesn't look like. Have you come up with any like clear indicator, warning signs, spidey sense components that MSPs should be looking for?
Yeah, that's a great one. Client doesn't want to meet with me. Hey, Jeff, you know what? I appreciate you reaching out to schedule the quarterly business review, but we don't need to meet. Everything's fine. That is bells and whistles. Something is wrong. And I've seen 100 MSPs post on Reddit. My clients are happy. Everything's good. Everything is never good. Our clients are never happier than the day they sign the contract, because the day they sign the contract, we've spent time wooing them. We've been in front of them a ton. We've really worked to solve a problem. They have pain and they're under the impression that we can make it go away. What happens after they sign the contract? Trouble ticket, trouble ticket, trouble ticket, trouble ticket, trouble ticket, trouble ticket. And every one of those, there's a Pavlovian experience that happens there where they go, man, the only time I talk to Jeff is when shit's broken. I used to like Jeff, but I don't really like Jeff anymore. Every time I talk to him, that guy breaks my shit, right? And those two things are not connected, right? But neither is music and a dog getting his dinner.
Mm-hmm.
There is a Pavlovian thing that happens that says, I only talk to you when things are bad. I associate you with things are bad. And now we have a shitty relationship. And if you think back to before we had RMM tools, when we used to go in the office to visit customers, think about how that worked. I think back to my biggest customer. I'd walk in the door, right in front of me was the receptionist. She was rarely the person with the problem, but I always said hi to her. So she loved me, right? We talked to her for a minute and then we go fix the problem. On the way down the hallway to fix the problem, I'd always stop in and see my point of contact. Hey, how you doing? Is everything good? How are the kids? I'm just here in the building to fix so-and-so's problem today. If there's anything else you need from me, let me know. Off and on I go. I have great relationships because I'm nurturing those relationships. Enter the RMM tool. Hey, Jeff, I sell you this widget, this gadget thingy. You put it on all your workstations. You can reduce your truck roll by 85%. You'll increase your client satisfaction. Everybody will love you more. You can show them how much time you're saving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in reality, all we did was light relationships on fire. And we've never gone back and said, part of my process needs to be just to pick up the phone on a Tuesday and go, hey, Jeff, I don't need anything. Just wanted to check in. How you doing?
Right. Especially in the post-COVID world, right? Where everyone got the get out of jail free card for being as virtual and as remote and as anti-face-to-face as possible.
And now I'm going to say something that our industry refuses to talk about or admit, and you won't hear anybody else talk about. Your service manager should call all of your customers on a regular cadence. Who do I need to have a better relationship with a customer than the person that they're going to talk to when their life is on fire? Right? Let him call and repair that relationship. Let her call and repair that relationship. Hey, Jeff, just wanted to schedule 15 minutes with you to go over service for the last month. Have a quick touch point. Hey, looks like we dropped the ball on a ticket here. Just wanted to let you know I have personally followed up on that, and I understand where we failed, and we're going to follow up on that and make sure that it never becomes a thing again. Oh, good, because I was going to yell at my VCIO about that next time I have a QBR. Now that's off the plate. It's gone. Now my QBR can stay strategic.
Right.
If you have a problem client, one that's whiny and yelling and screaming, schedule that touch point weekly. Hey, Jeff, it seems like we're just not aligned right now. You seem really frustrated with us, and we don't seem to be able to get anything right. I would just love it if we could connect once a week 15, 20 minutes and just talk about the week and make sure that I can address anything immediately in real time so that we can do a better job delivering service to you. And I know the people that are listening, the MSP that's listening goes, I don't want to do that. This guy's an asshole. I don't want to talk to him. He's an asshole because you guys can't get on the same page. All of your customers are not terrible. If all of your customers are terrible humans, then either you are the common denominator or you have a problem in your sales process that only attracts assholes.
Yeah.
It's one of those two things. If you're the common denominator, you have to take ownership of it. You have to get in front of your customers. You have to fix those relationships so that they want to do business with you. So task your service manager. Let them, it's billable time. Put it all against the agreement. It's utilization. We're not making the time go away. We're going to make a better relationship with our customers if we just engage with them instead of going, I bought a tool, we're remote, all the patches are done, all the backups are backed up, all the antiviruses are antivirused. I don't need to talk to them. That's horseshit. People do business with people they like.
Yeah, you hit something so important, and it reminds me of something I saw play out in all of the 5 MSPs I was a part of, each of the 7 times I was a part of them. And that is, I would end up saying something to the effect of, it really comes down to the 4 walls, right? If I'm looking at a customer who left and I only look at it through the lens of outside my 4 walls, which means that customer was an asshole, it's their problem, they weren't a good fit anyways, XYZ. Those 4 walls worked the other way too, where it's like we sort of had this ineptitude towards everything that happened inside our 4 walls because we were perfect and amazing and great. Outside the 4 walls, nothing. Curious if that kind of hits home on what you were describing.
Well, it does. I mean, perspective is everything, right? Perception is everything. On your side, your customer, as we work through that relationship, right? If day 1, they love you. Day 365, the crush is worn off. You're just the IT guy now, and when they call, they're frustrated. Day 750, they might be irate and shitty when they call. Well, what happens when I call you and every time I call you, I'm irate and shitty? You start to not like me. Now you start to treat me worse. Now I get more irate and shitty every time we talk, right? Yeah. So there is this thing where your techs look at your customer and go, that guy's a terrible human. I don't want to deal with him. If you have a customer that when the phone rings, you hear your techs go, ugh, I don't want it. Will you take it? Like, this is the sign that we have to step in. This is the sign that we've broken it because that the relationship's already damaged, and the relationship is damaged with the people at the entry level where this person works, where they interact the most. I always go back to like, you have that customer, you know who that is. And you also know who the customer is who brings you cookies every year at Christmas time, right? Brings cookies by the office. I say that because we had a church where the lady that ran the church office literally brought us cookies every year at Christmas. My team loved her. They would do anything Eileen wanted. Eileen spent $279 a month with us. And the only reason we did her business was because it was a church and we felt sorry for them. We made zero money on them. We probably lost money on them. My team loved her and would continue to lose more money on them and drop everything they were doing to go deal with it. Yeah. Right. That is such a misaligned goal, such a misaligned opportunity because I wasn't clear with my team to say, this is a low priority customer. And yes, she's a sweet lady and we'll send her a Christmas card and some chocolates and she'll bring us cookies and we'll call that even. But when the things are burning down at our biggest customer, we can't shift our focus to $279 a month cookie lady. Yeah. But she was always nice. She was never mean. So my team liked her. Right. And so this is where we get misaligned and we have to fix it. And the only way to fix it is relationships. There is our industry is going through this big consolidation, right? The big companies are out there buying up MSPs left and right. New Charter and Thrive and, all these big roll-ups have never been bigger. Small MSPs, when I talk to them, or mid-sized MSPs, you're going, yeah, but they're no big deal to me. I can still go steal customers from them. Why? Why is that? They have operational efficiencies over top of you. They have bigger budgets. They can afford to hire better people. They have full-on training programs. They have internal CIOs and VCIOs and resources you can't possibly imagine. They have their own SOC and their own NOC. They don't have to rely on some shitty third-party company that's not going to cover their ass. How can you beat them? Oh, because you can build relationships. Yeah. But once they're my customer, they're an asshole. I'm not going to build that relationship. Right. That's how fucked up this industry is. That's how myopic our view of our customer is. Yeah. And we have to change.
Alex, I want to be super respectful of your time. And for that, I know that you have earned the right to be as shamefully promotive of Empath as you want. I want to give you a couple of minutes to just help the audience understand exactly why they should take a look at Empath.
Yeah. I think training in our industries is broken as some of the other things that we do. We talk to the average MSP and ask them how many training portals they have, and they say somewhere between 15 and 25. And then we ask them how many of them they know where to find and actually enroll in the training from them. And the average is usually somewhere around 3.
Yeah.
So if you have 15 training portals and you're using 3 of them, you have a lot of things that aren't getting trained on and educated on in your organization. If you have people who are stuck in a role where you feel like they're just not moving forward, or you're onboarding people and you're struggling with that, we see that as a real problem in the industry. We know that colleges and trade schools are not pumping out people who are ready to jump into an MSP and hit the ground running. So if any of that is a struggle for you, that's the problem we're trying to solve at Empath, is to make your people more efficient, more effective, and make them efficient faster. The bad guys get better and smarter every day. We continue to go out and push the next cyber widget, cyber gadget, but we need to make our people smarter. We need our people to understand how fast the goalpost is moving. And the only way to do that is learning and development. So at Empath, we're committed to that. We're vendor agnostic. We're probably the only vendor agnostic, platform neutral training platform in the MSP space.
Yeah. And where do people find more of Alex and more of Empath?
EmpathMSP.com. You can find Empath and Alex J. Farling on LinkedIn. There's only one of me. Thank God. The world probably isn't ready for another.
Awesome. So the last question I have for you is actually to ask you. We've got several guests lined up for the show to interview next. What is the one question you would leave them with that I will ask them to open the show?
Woof. That's a good one. That's a really good one. I was unprepared for this. How about I honestly would like to lead with something around AI, and maybe what is it about AI that MSP should be wary of as we look at it to be the thing that solves all the world's problems.
Okay.
I think it's going to create more problems for us than solutions in the near future, and I think MSPs have to be ready for that.
Yeah, I think it's a new venture for sure, right? A new world in which none of us have lived through.
And as of
ever.
Tuesday night, ChatGPT still couldn't count the number of R's in strawberry. So let's just think about that when we think about how we're going to hang our hat on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, super appreciate you coming on the show. It's been great. The audience literally needs to just look at the transcript because they don't know how to execute all the value that you just dropped, and use the transcript of you telling the stories as the guidepost for how they might be able to facilitate and handle some of these conversations. So appreciate it. And especially for your approach and your desire and your ability to come on and say the things they need to hear.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. And I'll just leave everybody with this. Jeff Keaton on one of the most important things. Your growth is iterative. You can't take this transcript and boil the ocean and solve for all of these problems. Pick one. Pick one, implement it, fix it, practice it, and then go pick the next one. If we get 1% better every day or every week, the compounding value of that is significant.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Alex.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, buddy. Take care.